Hello, Geneva, and welcome to Officially Speaking. I'm your host, Kevin Starr. Each month, we sit down with one of our local elected officials or appointed officials to get the latest with your city government. Today, we're joined by Natural Resources Committee Chairman Jay Womack. Jay, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
For those not familiar with the Natural Resources Committee, can you tell our audience a little bit about what your group does for the City of Geneva?
Absolutely. Natural Resources Committee is a volunteer group. We are 10 people strong, and we do a lot that promotes the environment, fosters health for the environment, and educates the community about what they can do as far as health for the environment. We are 10 people, and we've been in existence for at least a dozen years because I've been on the committee for almost that long. Just recently, we amended our bylaws to accept people as a non-voting member that could be outside the city limits of Geneva, or if they just would like to be part of a project like Wine, Cheese, and Trees or Earth Day, so that they can be there for helping or to just be part of the meetings, which we actually have a gentleman now from Batavia who shows up at all of our meetings, and it's great to see that he's taken a concerted effort to want to be involved and be part of our committee. So we adjusted our bylaws just for that.
Well, today's show is going to focus primarily on trees, and I guess the obvious question is, why are trees important to Geneva, and what are the community benefits?
There are so many community benefits. So most people know that trees give us oxygen, but there's so many both economic benefits and physical benefits that trees can provide for the city of Geneva. The city seal proudly exhibits what I would assume is a bur oak, one of a very majestic tree, which is one of our native trees. What's interesting is that trees can do so much for the environment, such as absorb carbon dioxide or the pollutants that are airborne. So the more trees that we have in our urban canopy, the more pollutants that are airborne that the trees can collect either on their leaves or within the bark, and they hold on to those things. They also help to diminish a little bit of the heat island, urban heat island, that's in many of our suburbs and our cities, by creating shade on our streets, on our parking lots, on dark surfaces that reflect heat back into the atmosphere. Quite interestingly enough, the other day I was walking along 3rd Street and I passed from the tree canopy to a non-tree canopy area, and I felt the temperature of the sun increase almost probably close to 20 degrees. It's a sizable difference. And for people who are visiting Geneva and shopping and walking on 3rd and State, it's a place then that creates a more of a human atmosphere. It provides shade from the sun. It provides what we call prospect and refuge, that people feel more comfortable by trees, under trees, and it allows them to feel that they can see through the canopy or underneath the canopy into the stores and so forth, which then when the sidewalks are shaded, those trees are providing a place for people to slow down and walk, take in the ambiance of the city, which then helps our merchants to get people into their stores and so forth. If people just want to pass quickly from one place to another because the sun is hot, they're not taking a moment to look in the store windows. Those are some of the economical benefits. Some of the environmental benefits are rainfall. Quite a few of the trees, or all of our trees, will absorb some of the rainfall before it even hits the city streets. So if we can reduce the rainfall that hits our city streets, those are waters that are picking up pollutants that are going directly into our storm sewers, which are going right directly into the Fox River. And it's not just the pollutants, it's the temperature of the water that most people don't think about. The temperature in August of the asphalt parking lot could be a couple hundred degrees. And when that rain falls on that rain takes on the temperature of that asphalt parking lot, which then passes into our storm sewers and passes into the Fox River. And none of the fish and the fauna and wildlife that grows in that river enjoy water temperatures that are 90 degrees. They like cool, clean water. And so those are some of the things that our trees inadvertently are helping to protect. Is when we think of a tree in downtown Geneva, we don't associate it with the Fox River. But there's a direct correlation to all of those things, and they're all interrelated within the environment. Air conditioning, we run our air conditioning constantly in the summertime, and with trees around our homes and our businesses, we can help reduce that, which then is helping to reduce the carbon monoxide and that's coming from those power plants, the coal that's being excavated, the airborne mercury that comes from a lot of our coal-burning power plants, all because we have trees around our homes and our neighborhoods that are helping to offset some of the need for using air conditioners.
Let's say I'm going to buy a tree. Where do I start and what type of tree would be appropriate for this area?
That's a great question. So you always want to find a tree that's appropriate for the situation. So say you're buying a tree for your parkway in front of your home. One of the first things you want to do is look up and make sure there aren't any wires overhead. If there are wires overhead, you may want to think about a tree that has a shorter stature, something that'll still give you some beautiful street frontage and some shade, but maybe won't become a 60-foot tree that has to be pruned and cut and reduced on one half so that it doesn't bother the wires. The other thing you want to look at is, are there amenities around your home, like a fire hydrant, which might indicate that there's a water line. So it's really important to call Julie and call the city and let them know that you're going to be planting a tree so they can come out and mark those utilities. But what you really want to look for in a tree is something that's going to be for the future. You want a tree that's going to provide shade and structure and maybe something that's there for 3 generations. A lot of times that is a tree that might be assumed to be a little bit slower growing, but we're planting it for our future, for our children, and not necessarily for ourselves. So that's one thing to think about. Street trees, there's a lot of urban pollution that comes off of our streets, the heat, the water, the snow, the ice. So finding trees that can withstand a little bit of that urban condition. And so there's great nurseries that you can talk to your nurseries. Your local nurseries like Wasco Nursery has great representatives for helping you to pick out maybe the tree that is best situated for your circumstance. And I'm always in favor of calling a nursery and asking them what they might recommend.
What types of tips can you offer our audience about tree protection? I know our summers get quite warm here in Geneva. We've had cases of emerald ash borer infestation, probably other things that impact trees on a daily basis. What are some helpful tips that you can offer us?
Well, one of the most important things is not to create a monoculture. So one of the things you could do is look around at your canopies and your trees that are existing in your neighborhoods, on your streets, in your yard, and try not to replicate exactly every one of those trees that we have in those places. One of the reasons why emerald ash borer was so devastating is that we created too much of a monoculture of our ash trees. And the same thing happened a long time ago with our Dutch elm disease, and all of our elm trees died, and we had a monoculture. So one of the things that we can try to do is we can try to create a little biodiversity within our tree canopy. Another great thing you can do is you mentioned in the summer it gets hot here. Too often people spend all of their watering time on their lawn. What they need to concentrate on is watering those trees and getting that water down deep into those roots, because a drought can take an effect on a tree 2 or 3 years down the road versus immediately. Your lawn will come back every single day that there's a drought, rain or shine, whatever you do to it. A tree, once it starts to decline, it's very difficult to bring it back. So what I would recommend for most people to do is, instead of concentrating on watering your lawn so that they're green during the summer, put a hose on your tree. If you plant a new tree, you should water it a minimum of 3 years. It takes that long for a tree to truly establish itself, and quite often it's because our soils are so poor, they're compacted, and it takes a couple years, if not even 3 to 5 years, for those roots to finally break out, get into some of those soils, especially in our parkways where we've got compacted soils. So if you can dig a bigger hole, you can plant your tree and give it some water, not every day, but every few days, give it a shot of water. You're going to create a tree that's very healthy, vibrant, and it's going to grow very quickly. Another thing to think about is most people go out and they use a shovel to create that pit around the edge for their mulch. And unfortunately what you're doing is you're cutting the roots every time you dig in a little bit, those little shallow feeder roots that are so important. The other important roots are the roots that are 2.5 times the canopy of the tree. And most people don't recognize or realize that in a lot of our larger trees, the roots are 2.5 times the canopy. So next time you're standing at your tree, look up at that canopy and now go out pace 2.5 times the size of that tree. Those are the most important roots, because those are the shallow feeder roots that are taking in nutrients and moisture for those trees. So when you've got a car that's parked once in a while on the lawn, it's starting to compact the roots. If you're going to do an addition on your home, think about where those trees are located and think about where those really important roots are so that you're not impacting them. And then think about the turf grass. Maybe take away some of that turf grass and plant some ground cover, something that'll provide some nutrients for the trees. It'll start to give back a little bit to the soil. because our turf grass is really good at taking away nutrients, but quite often they don't give back nutrients because their roots are so shallow that most of the water that falls on them sheets off before it actually can saturate into the soil and become available for our plants and especially for our trees. There are so many great things that people can do, and it'll make your lawn better, it'll reduce it, which then reduces your mowing, which then reduces the carbon that's in the air, which then puts less stress on our trees. And it's amazing when you start to think about the circle of life that's created with all of these trees and all the things that are going on, that the simple things that people can do in their yards and their parkways can really add to the longevity of these trees. And then think about planting native trees. You know, too often we plant non-natives that can become invasive and escape into the wild. Number one tree that I would recommend people do not plant is a Norway maple. Norway maples create so much shade that nothing will grow underneath them. They escape into our wild, they become a nuisance on our woodlands, and then they can be detrimental to our woodlands. Some trees that I would recommend planting are red oaks, chinkapin oak, bur oak if you can find them, but bur oaks can be a little slow growing and a little gnarly looking for most people in their parkways. So the red oak and the chinkapin oak are two really good oaks that people can start to think about planting. And they will survive for probably a couple hundred years. And those are the types of trees that we need to be thinking about planting in our neighborhoods, because they are amazing trees. And then they also start to give back for wildlife, the fruits and the nuts that they provide for the squirrels and so forth. So you're creating a little bit of an ecosystem that's in balance by really looking at these native trees that we can plant in our parkways and around our homes.
So now that you've offered us a lot of great tips and insight into trees, what is the NRC doing to help foster tree growth in Geneva?
We are doing quite a bit, actually. So we have a fundraiser called Wine, Cheese, and Trees. It's once a year, and we raise almost $20,000. Previously, we had been splitting the money with Western Avenue School for them to grow their edible garden. They have now raised the money that they need, so the NRC is taking on the fundraiser all by themselves. So with that money, we're actually planting trees in our parkways on behalf of the City of Geneva. And to date, I think we've planted almost 70, if not 80 trees. Most of them are along 3rd Street. This last year, we planted 17 at each of the schools within the city limits of Geneva, the school district. And we're looking to plant more trees this fall because we've already noticed that some of the trees are being taken down on 3rd Street that are the emerald ash borer infected ash trees. So there are starting to become some holes, and we can start to plug them up with some trees. And it's the tree canopy that people love. It's when people walk down 3rd Street, you can just feel the difference in the atmosphere of where they're walking, the sun, the filtered sun, the shade, the beautiful ambiance of the large trees that you're walking underneath, and it just creates such an amazing venue to enjoy walking during the evening or during the day of some sort. So we're really trying to do our part to help the city put back trees within their parkways.
And if people were looking to get more information about the NRC, how would they go about doing that?
Well, they can contact the City of Geneva, and they would be given our website page. They can go to Geneva. I know I'm going to get this wrong. It's Geneva NRC /Facebook, and we have a lot of good information on there about who we are, what we do, events that we're part of, upcoming events that we're partaking in, and we would love to get more people involved. You don't necessarily have to be a member of the NRC to be involved, but if you want to come out and help us with a work day, we're going to have a Fox River cleanup day sometime here this year. We're going to start doing our Fabian Preserve cleanup days again on Saturdays, which I'd love to see more people be invested in, because there is a chunk of oak trees that are almost 200 acres in size, and those 100 acres of oak trees are absorbing water, reducing pollutants, creating oxygen, and so now we've got a mass of trees that we're really trying to protect, and they do a lot for the environment and for people. And it's an amazing thing to watch as we remove the invasives, to see these trees come out of the shadows, so to speak, and see the magnificence that these trees behold.
That's all the time we have for Officially Speaking. I'd like to thank Jay Womack for his time and insight into the Natural Resources Committee.
Thank you.
We also thank you for watching. We hope you tune in again next month to get the official word on your city government.